So what we're going to get into here is everyone in the room here, and this is just good information for you here in your high-rise protocols. What I'm going to get into right now is phase 1 and phase 2. Does everyone here know what I'm talking about? Elevator putting it in phase 1 or phase 2? Don't seem like it. Perfect. Well, you're going to be dialed in after this. So I'm going to give you all the information. I'm not here to dictate on a high-rise fire whether or not you guys use your elevator. That's going to be up to your department policies and SOGs. But what I'm going to tell you is once you've identified where the fire floor is, it's going to be, the means of the elevator is going to be much quicker and less exhausting than the stairs. One rumor, if you've heard, that I want to dispel is some people out there that are doing training, and I challenge you to try this yourself. They'll tell you if they have an elevator entrapment, go out, put it in phase 1, and the elevator, the hoistway doors, it'll automatically return to the first floor and it will automatically open up. I'm here to tell you BS. BS. Challenge me on it. I guarantee you someone's just sold you a line of goods, and it's unfortunate. It's a misnomer that's put out there in the fire service, and I'm here to change that. So if phase 1 and phase 2 works when the elevator is under normal operation. So I'm going to tell you the only entrapment that I would ever use it on, that I'm going to, and you're going to have an audible sign and you're going to know right away when you make access to that elevator. Maybe in your guys' area, especially when we get a little colder and a little rainy, you'll have your transients, your homeless population. They want somewhere to go stay and not be disrupted, right? So they'll get in the elevator and they'll run that up wherever, usually in between floors, and they'll pull the emergency stop. If the elevator's equipped with it or they have access to it, and they'll stop, and they're so intoxicated or really don't care about the buzzer or the alarm going off. Okay? And there's nothing that happens. Somebody can pull the call button. You can't get to them. Nothing will happen. Just because that alarm's going off does not mean there's not a problem with the elevator. It's still in normal operation. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Someone pulled the stop and took it out of the run position, and any time an elevator is switched from run into stop, it will always alarm, telling you and signifying that door stop. So what I'll do is I'll show up and ruin their parade. If I show up and I have an audible alarm coming from the hoistway, it's atrocious. It'll be very obvious. If I put the key in and switch the elevator from normal operation in the lobby and put that into phase 1, which it'll say fire service on it, from the lobby, phase 1 is I activate the fire service key. That brings that's phase 1. Phase 2 is once I get inside the elevator car for fire operations, all right? So I put the key phase 1, it will recall to the first floor and the doors will open up because it's still under normal operation and they just hit the emergency stop. Any other entrapment, there's some kind of mechanical malfunction, power outage, whatever you want it to be. Phase 1 will not work. You're wasting your time, okay? Don't use it unless you hear an audible alarm. That phase 1 key, 24-hour facility, will be at the front desk or where somebody's attended, maybe with security. If it's not a 24-hour facility equipped with elevators, you should be asking them to contact the company that handles their elevator servicing and issues and get a phase 1 key and have it secured in the Knox box. So, to reiterate, phase 1, first floor lobby. Phase 2, we'll get to in a second, is always inside the car. So what this is talking about right here is I'm getting ahead of myself. There's 2 ways that an elevator can be put into phase 1. Either I take the fire service key and I manually do it, or the fire protection system in that occupancy has been activated and says that there's a fire problem, and then it puts it in phase 1. The elevator car will automatically return to the first floor and open up unless there's a smoke detector or heat rate of rise in the location of that elevator, thinking there's a fire problem there. Then depending on the stories, how tall how many floors the building is, there is a secondary and could be even greater pre-programmed alternative floor that will return to if it thinks that there's a problem on the first floor, and it will go to that predetermined floor and then open up. Okay? Everybody will tell you it's always the first floor. It's always the first floor if there's not a fire problem there. Okay? And that's set. Like I told you, every elevator has a computer, and that's all pre-programmed in the computer. All right? And so all this stuff, too, I know I'm kind of hitting this fast to get us to lunch on time. All this information is in your PowerPoint. Okay, so older stuff, and we might see today. When I look in the lobby at the wall at the fire service to put the key in and activate phase 1, older ones are going to say bypass, off, and on. Okay, all the newer ones you won't even see bypass anymore. But what bypass is for is if you went out to a facility that's equipped with elevators and they need those to continue on with their business and move occupants throughout their facility, and you went to a fire alarm there and you did a thorough investigation and you've determined there is not a fire problem at all, and it simply is a malfunction of the fire alarm system, right? There's no reason to keep these people's elevator from working. Then you put it in the bypass mode, and that will allow the elevator still to run because you overcame the fire system being able to activate the phase 1. Does that make sense? On those ones that are equipped, bypass, off, and on. If for whatever reason, training or real incident, you put that into phase 1. Always, when you don't just go back to off, turn it back to bypass and then to off when you put it back into normal operation. All the new stuff, and I'm sure we're going to see some today. Here we're going to a new group for Kone. It's just going to say on and off. Okay?
I have a question. So if we have a fire alarm and due to a smoke detector, and we reset the alarm, and the elevators had gone down to the first floor, we still have to manually reset the elevator as well, or will resetting the fire alarm?
Yeah, if the fire alarm's still showing in trouble or problem, it won't allow you to turn that phase 1 off unless you put it in the bypass situation. And I'm not saying necessarily for you to go do that or make your standard. That's going to be based on your guys' policies and SOGs at your organization. If that's something that you want to do as a customer service thing, put that in bypass. Because when the elevator technician comes out, because they're going to have to follow up with that, you're not going to have to go back out and take that out of fire service. The elevator tech or mechanic that comes to can restore that elevator to a normal operation. Any other question? We good? Okay, so this just kind of talks about what I've already talked about. It's there in your notes to keep and be able to review. Some of them, this is just saying some of the older ones you'll come across, instead of saying bypass, it'll say reset. All the new ones, you're only going to see on and off. Okay, and so this is just a picture. It's also in your handout showing you in the lobby where the call button is to call that elevator. It's just showing you. Sometimes you'll see it'll be labeled and have a little fire helmet above it. It'll say fire service. Some of them don't say anything, but most of them are labeled for us. This is just showing you different ones, a couple different options out there of what that fire service access is going to look like. So phase 2, always, no exceptions, is always going to be inside the elevator car. So how it works is I'm standing in the lobby. I stick the fire service key in there and I turn it to on. The elevator car is going to come down to the first floor and the hoistway doors are going to open because the car is within its unlock zone. Both doors are going to open up together. Once that happens, I pull the key out of the wall at the lobby level, still leaving it in the on position. I take that key and I climb inside the elevator, and there's going to be another. It's going to say fire service, so there's going to be a helmet in there, and the same thing. It's either going to say reset or bypass, off and on, or just off and on. And we're going to take that key, stick it into the phase 2 control, turn that to on. Okay, we can do this today. I'll show you in the field how to use it. Now, once I do that, nothing will happen until I tell the elevator car what to do. So if I get in there and I say I'm on the first floor and I want to go to the 14th floor and I hit 14, nothing is going to happen until I push the door close and I hold that button down until the hoistway and the car door close all the way down together. If it gets halfway, 3/4, 2/3, whatever you want to make the number other than full, and I let off, that door will automatically open back up. So the best practice is get in, hit the door closed, let it hit and set against the jamb secured, then select the floor that you're going to go to. So I picked the 14th floor. We get to the 14th floor and the elevator car doesn't open. Don't panic. It's doing what it's supposed to do. It won't open until I hold the door open. And if I don't hold the door open until the car door is all the way open, it will automatically close. So we get to the 14th floor. We didn't realize, we didn't have good intel. Nobody sought out and found where the seat of the fire is, and I end up on the fire floor, or I end up on a floor that's impacted by smoke. I open it up and I didn't realize, oh shoot, I'm at or in an IDLH environment. I start to open. As soon as I let off that door is going to close back to keep smoke from coming into that, from that elevator. Okay, and so we have to, that's a safety for us. So we have to hold that all the way open. Once I hold that all the way open, it opens. It will not close unless someone comes in and hits close all the way. If I step out of that elevator in phase 2 and I go do business, or I'm going to go do a search, and I'm planning on coming back to that elevator as my means of egress, guess what you better do? You better keep your brother or sister from getting in that thing and going back down to the lobby. And how we're going to do that, it's going to say hold in there. You're going to turn it to the hold position, take the key out, and take that with you so you have control of your egress. And then that elevator car will stay there waiting for you to return and will not close if it's in the hold position. If you just leave it on, anybody can get in there and run it and do whatever they want if they understand how to operate phase 2. We good? I lose you? I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you. Bear with me. I'm going to pull it all together, I promise, before I go. So we're just going to breeze through this. I've shared the information with you. It's in your handout to take back and use. All right? So if it's equipped with hold, it's not always. The majority of the time you're going to find it. If you want that elevator to stay there waiting for you, put it in the hold position. Okay, so this just is a picture showing you inside the car now what the control panel looks like, and you can see the little red box around with the key in the center up there. That's the fire. That's where we would put the fire service key. To go ahead and put it into phase 2. Another one, a little different, it's a round circle. Sometimes it'll say around there, and it'll tell you if you forget. It's telling you how to use the fire service operation. Okay, I told you earlier you may see a helmet. This one you see on, off, and hold in the middle. So all I'm showing you in this PowerPoint is just there's a lot of different variations out there. Just want you to know what you're working with when you see it. Okay, so we kind of already talked about on our types of elevators. It's either going to be hydraulic, electric traction, or drum, which are still drum out there, but there aren't any new drums going in. It's old and outdated. I was telling, somebody was asking me earlier, the reason why it's outdated and going by the wayside is a hydro elevator, normal speed that it runs at is 150 feet a minute. Okay, a drum is set, it runs at 350 feet a minute. Any other electric traction elevator doesn't run any slower than 800 feet a minute. You can have 800. I told somebody down in Vegas, place where there's money, a lot of occupancy, it may be up to 2,000 feet a minute. Okay, so places with that have facilities that have a lot of money, they want to move people fastly, they're going to go with electric over hydro because it moves much faster. And the drums are, you'll see them in your guys' old stuff, but they're outdated. There's no new drum going in. Okay?
What tethers a car on an electric traction? cable holding it in place.
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh, absolutely there is.
There is.
Absolutely, yeah. So, what's that?
I guess where on an electric traction, where's the motor for it? How is it moving that car?
It's in the machine, and it's an electric motor that's running that. And I showed you earlier, and you'll see in your handouts there, that cable is on a pulley that's running that, and it is cable. Both drum and electric traction both have cables. It's the mechanism on the motor which drives the cable. Okay, so hydro's broken into two types here, or two categories. And so you'll have plunger, which most of us are familiar with. If we open, or the pictures I've shown you before, if you see that cylinder that runs from the elevator pit up to the base of the car, that you're looking at a plunger, right, or a hydraulic ram. The roped hydro is what they're going to now, and is all the new stuff, and you won't see a cylinder with a ram in it. It's hydraulic cables. The reason for is on a hydraulic plunger type, which is the ram that you see, however many floors or stories that elevator services. So let's just go for conversation. Let's just say that it goes 4 stories, okay? On a plunger, then that ram goes 4 stories down into the ground. So whatever it is in height, they had to auger in and go that deep, right? It's not convenient, realistic anymore. So now, to get away from that, and you don't have to deal with it or have the space to be able to do it, that's the hydraulic roped. Okay, and just like on your aerials and stuff, it's literally hydraulic lines, and you'll see them when you open up. That's hooked to it that powers it. All right. So this is just showing you off the side and showing you don't see, you don't see any ram on there. So if you open it up and you look below it in the hoistway or in the elevator shaft, and you don't see any ram, then it's roped hydraulic. You can see down at the base, and it's in your, sorry, it's not as easy to read in your picture, but you see on the bottom a car buffer. You may have 1, you may have 4 of those to where they hit towards the outer corner of the car, but you'll see that down in the base of the pit, and that's what the elevator car rests on when it's all the way down in the pit. Okay, the plunger, you could see we've got the ram or the cylinder now, and you can see how it shows it goes down in the ground as well. And all this information is in your handout. All right. So the traction is the most common type, and the reason why it's the most common is because it runs the fastest for the electric. Okay, and it's just a picture, and it's just showing you the different components of electric traction type elevator. Okay, and this is your information there for you. You're asking about the drum. It's in your handout. It'll explain to you the difference and why it's antiquated now and no longer being used. Okay, and that's just a picture right there of the drum and showing you the cable. When you look at the traction, you'll see the same thing. That
I've seen catching pools too, like where there's like a pool, like of the fluid. In a couple locations.
Catching pool.
It's like where the hydraulic fluid will drain into, and it's like exposed, and I mean you can see the level.
So what I would tell you is, more than likely, I'm not 100% certain, I'm not familiar with that. What I would tell you more than likely is that's a wet reservoir. Look and see next time you go there if the manifold's in there, and for whatever reason, maybe climate control issues or whatever in the room, the lid's just been removed or left off the reservoir. It's still a wet reservoir. It's not a spillover. There's only one primary reservoir, and you'll see the plumbing in the manifold probably just has the lid missing. Some of them will hinge. Most of them, it's just a lift-off lid. And so that's my guess that the lid is disappeared, but I could be wrong. So now we're getting into early in the PowerPoint. We talked about safeties on electric elevators. Now we're to this portion that we saw back in the contents of what we were going to cover in this PowerPoint as safety features. So the safeties we already talked about earlier are going to be on electric elevator only. You see the interlock. I already told you about the interlock and the keeper, that's an electromagnetic connection, also a mechanical means of securing that. but there's a circuit there's a contact on both of those that corresponds or talks back to the control panel or the computer, and that's what keeps the car from moving up and down if we have an unprotected hoistway. Okay, so that's the interlock safeties, just like we have interlocks on our ladder trucks. The anti-egress, I told you, that's going to be any time on an elevator that's equipped. Most newer Group 3s or newer Group 3s, all Group 4s, and it could be retroed on 3s or even sometimes 2s. It's going to limit that car door from the inside. It won't allow it to open more than 4 inches if it's not within the unlock zone, right? Which is going to be plus or minus from the floor level, depending on that grouping. I gave you rule of thumbs, but to be exact, it's going to be based on the catch on the door clutch or the length of the bayonet from where the pickup rollers sit to the top, or from the pickup rollers to the bottom. Is that plus or minus? Okay, and we'll cover that more in the field. Emergency stop switch. You're going to see that on all Group 2s. Pretty much the majority of Group 3s, some newer Group 3s, depending on when they were installed, and all Group 4s. If you get in there, I challenge you, look at the control panel within the car. You'll look at it and you will no longer see that push-pull emergency stop run or that toggle switch that says run stop. It's been put in a compartment that's locked. It's still equipped with it, but the occupants or patron inside of the elevator car do not have access to it any longer. They can't just stop that elevator car anywhere in the hoistway, like I talked about that example I gave you earlier, the transit that hops in there to get out of the element, they run it up to whatever floor, and they pull that thing. That can't happen anymore, right? So it may be as simple of, I was asked earlier, and I'm going to reiterate this later, my simple to complex. And I talked about either mitigating an entrapment from the inside out, outside in, or the combination of. And so I was asked by the young lady over here earlier, can't I just ask somebody to open the doors, whether it's 1 push away or 2 pull them apart? Absolutely. But what I said, if you're going to do that, if the car is equipped with an emergency stop, we want to have that activated, or we want to have secured power in the mechanical room, because if not, we still have power to the door opener, which is causing resistance, and they're going to be fighting, trying to overcome that. Once we kill the power to it, we're going to release the resistance, and it's going to be it's approximately 40 pounds of pressure, sometime depending a little bit less, and pretty manageable for most people to be able to open. So with that, the same thing is, we just had an entrapment not too long ago in Vacaville, and they showed up and alarms going off. I told you if you have the phase 1 key, you could automatically just have, but what's even easier than that is it's going to be a pain in the butt if they can hear you and get their communication, or maybe they have a cell phone they called in you have that number, you call them back, talk through cell phone, or you have them pick up, or there's a microphone inside the car that you can communicate with them. You just tell them, hey, is there a button? Is there a red button on that says emergency stop or stop run? Or is there a toggle switch that says stop run? And what happened on this particular entrapment is real simple. The little girl with her mom and had no idea and didn't realize that she just bumped the toggle switch and moved it into the stop. And then they heard that alarm go off. It's god-awful, atrocious sound, right? Then it just creates panic and anxiety. They don't realize, they don't have the background or training that we do. And it was as simple as telling them, and we were able to communicate and say, hey, flip that back to stop. They flipped it back to stop. Back to run. The car automatically returned to the floor, and the doors opened right up and they came out, right? So we're always going to try. It doesn't matter if it's a emergency or an incident. And so this is going to be based on the direction that your department sets forth with you when I leave, but how we operate in Vacaville is I handle all our trainings. Every one of, almost in the entirety of yours are actually a little bit better, of our apparatus minus the medic units and the brush all have these kits on them. Okay? And so when we go, we believe in customer service, and I don't believe in, if I'm going to be dispatched to an elevator entrapment, I'll be damned if I'm going to sit there for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, half an hour, 20 minutes. I don't care what it is, waiting for a technician to come. And the technician is just like within our own organization, right? We're only as good as the tech we're getting. Not every one of your firefighters is trained to the same level. Not every mechanic you take your vehicle to has the same skill set, right? So you're gambling. You're hoping that you're going to get a good tech that's better than you are when you get there. So my thing is, if we're going to be professionals, let's master our craft. And if we're not going to do a damn thing but comfort and talk soothing to someone when we go to one of these things, let's not even go. There's plenty of other people that can go to them. So if we're going to go, let's go make a difference. And so I don't care if it's an incident or an emergency. I'm going to run every one of them the exact same. I'm going to work simple to complex, exhausting all my options. Here's when it changes from an incident into emergency, and I'm going to switch gears, okay? If somebody's inside and they're on oxygen, it's an emergency. I don't know what the oxygen level is. I don't know how soon it's going to run out. If they are having any kind of medical event in there, it's obvious, right? If they are having a panic attack or an anxiety, it's not an emergency to us, but it's an emergency to them, and it falls into the category. So let me back up and tell you, the only thing that's an incident is a component malfunction or a power outage, period. Everything else is an emergency. So I'm still going to go and attack every one of them the same way. So I work simple to complex, which you'll walk away and you'll know it in and out by the time I leave today. But I'm working through my process. And I get all the way to the pick. And for whatever reason, I wasn't successful. Or someone, you guys will find out, some of you guys are going to be great, Gal, you're going to be great at this. And others, it's going to look like a monkey on a football. I've already done, there's no way. Some people just won't get it. And others, and hopefully those people don't go first, because then you think I'm a clown. Why is this guy here wasting our time? But then after you see a couple of your brothers and sisters get it just like you're like, okay, maybe this stuff actually works. So you go in for whatever the reason is, right? We all come with different skill sets. Some of us has more finesse than others. It doesn't work. But it was someone inside having a panic attack, or they're on oxygen, or I was telling a gentleman earlier, I actually had an entrapment for Vallejo Fire, and a buddy of mine happened to be on the call, actually called me at 10:30 at night, and I ran the entrapment from my phone, a combination of started pictures and speakerphone, and then parlayed into FaceTime. They didn't have the kit yet. Now they have my kits. This won't be an issue. But they didn't have the kit. So we went simple to complex. They were coming back from it was a medical aid in an apartment complex. Of course, the engine company took the stairs, and the private ambulance company, the medic and the EMT and the patient were inside the elevator. Stat shortness of breath. We went through our process. They didn't have the pics, and so we ultimately had to resort to force. So where I'm going with this is I work all the way up to incident or emergency. It doesn't matter, because you'll find out I can get in faster with these picks. I'll challenge any one of you than you can get in with your rabbit tool, with your hydraulic spreaders, anything. And I'll show you today. So simplest is always going to be faster than if I use force. But if for whatever reason, it's a weird and wonderful that we haven't pre-planned yet, or we're just having a bad day and we can't get in, it's an emergency. That's when I'm going to go to force. If it's an incident and I've went all the way and I'm unsuccessful, guess what? We can justify what we did, and we could say we exhausted all our options, and we weren't there just to comfort and cuddle. We were there to make a difference, and unfortunately, it just wasn't our day. Sometimes things happen outside of our control. So it's an incident. It's not an emergency. I stop because there's a technician on the way. I verified it. If there wasn't one when I get there, you may go out to these facilities and I'll show you. It'll be right on there. There'll be a phone number and it'll tell you who the contact is for service or who handles emergency. The number will be right, pardon me, right there. Okay? And hopefully they've already been notified, someone on site, so they call, or if not, you can have your dispatch and call them. And we'll leave it to them. And when we get there, just like we do, turn over to someone else, we'll transfer and let them know, this is what we did, simple to complex. We're unsuccessful. Maybe they will be, maybe they won't. Now, we did that, and it's an emergency, though. It's not an incident. It's an emergency for one of the reasons I gave you. We're going to force. After this class, what I'm going to tell you, contact Vallejo Fire. They didn't believe me either until he did it. You don't need anything else but irons. That's it. Not everybody was outside, so I'll repeat myself, is when have you ever been doing entrapment and the mechanic or the technician shows up and they walk in with a hydraulic tool, airbags, a rabbit tool, a K12, a recip saw? Have you ever seen it happen? Never. They don't have it. They don't use it. So what I'm going to tell you is, instead of using any one of those any of those tools, you put those tools to a door, minimum $20,000 to the business or the owner of the facility to get that elevator up and running. I have photos I could show some of you later on my phone that were sent to me a few months back. I won't release the department that did it. Pardon me. They went in and used hydraulic spreaders. The elevator was out of service for 3 months and cost the owner $70,000 to put it back. You tell me, is that good customer service? Absolutely not. For us just to go out and just be forcing through things, or people say knuckle dragging truckies and go beat and break, it's not professional. It's not good customer service. All right? So I would hope after this class we won't do that anymore. Set of irons, if it's a side opening door, doesn't matter single speed or 2-speed, whatever side that door closes and comes to rest at the jamb, that's where my keeper is and that's where my interlock box is. As high as I can in the jamb with the Halligan, with the top of the fork up against the header. I'm only going to use enough force to overcome the objective that I'm trying to tackle. I'm just going to keep tapping and bang that in like with a little hammer and just think of it as a hammer and a big crowbar. I'm going to tap that in. At some point, you are going to overcome the machine screws that hold this in place, or this little piece here. You're just going to see self-tapping screws that hold that into place, and there are little machine screws. You're either going to fail the keeper or you're going to fail the interlock box, and the hoistway door will just open right up. If it's within its unlock zone, the hoistway door and the car door will open together. If it's not, you'll open the hoistway door. You'll be faced with the car door because it's not within its unlock zone, and then I'll show you how to open that. If it doesn't have a door restrictor on it, you just push it open. If it's a group 2, there's no big deal. If there's a door restrictor on there, I'll show you how to overcome the door restrictor, and then you open it right up. It's that simple. And then with scratches now, and the door won't be as aesthetically pleasing as when you started, the technician comes back out and a couple hours later puts a new keeper on there, a new interlock box, and they're back in business for minimal dollars versus $20,000 or greater dollars. That's customer service.